Coming up on Over a Barrel, gas prices are starting to increase in certain parts of the country. Plus, what about those tariffs? We've got it all and a whole lot more coming up right here on Over a Barrel, which starts right now. Thanks for joining us on Over a Barrel. I'm Matt, the other guy is Patrick, and we are here for yet another episode of Over a Barrel. Patrick, we've got so much stuff going on. This is crazy. But let's get into right now what we teased at the very beginning. Gas prices are starting to increase across some parts of the country. I can tell you where I am at. I saw a little bit of a jolt over the weekend as well. So not happy about that, but I can't blame you. You're only the messenger. So first of all, how are you doing? And talk to us about some of these prices.
Yeah, Matt, let's just get right into it here. I'm doing great. Prices are not doing so great. In fact, looking at the biggest changes over the last week, all 15 of the largest changes in gas prices have been increases. So if you're not seeing any increases, you should count your blessings because most of us are. The West Coast, that's a region where we warned last week on X. By the way, if you follow on X, Over a Barrel Matt, I'm Gas Buddy Guy. And in between podcasts, you can always tune into our social media channels on Facebook, Over a Barrel Show, or each individually. Matt, I've been warning that gas prices are going to start jumping significantly in California, Oregon, Washington, and basically the markets that feed those, specifically Western Arizona, Phoenix, Reno, Las Vegas. All of this really centers around refinery fire that happened back in February in Northern California. Now, if you add in the rise in seasonal demand, temperatures are warming up, the transition to summer gasoline, also other refineries doing maintenance, Matt, that is kind of the foundation for why gas prices are set to jump. In fact, as we stand here ending the month of March, we're going to see a bigger increase in these areas, California, Washington, Oregon. Prices, Matt, already in California up 13 cents a gallon in the last week. All of this really has to do with that refinery fire. That refinery now permanently shut down. Only starting in the second quarter is that refinery in Martinez, California, going to start being restored. And it's going to take until the end of 2025 for that company to fully get the refinery back online after that major fire. So Phoenix, another complicating factor, Matt, as we talked about refinery maintenance, Phoenix literally just in the last 48 hours made the jump to its own blend of gasoline. You and I have highlighted.
What?
The complexity of all these different types of gasoline. Arizona has their own blend, and it's really, really particular. We could get in the weeds. Like literally, they go into the coordinates of where this gasoline has to be used. But if you're in Phoenix, prices could go up 25, maybe 45 cents over the next week or two.
What do they have a reason for coming
it's
up
their
with
flavor. Well, keep in mind, Matt, it's here's usually what dictates the blend of gasoline you use. Phoenix has been very complex. Arizona has seen a population boom really the last couple of years, and they get really warm. If you've noticed, Phoenix, this time of year, they can hit 90 or 100 degrees. So Phoenix has a very stringent blend of gasoline, which is different than California's. And they've just made the sudden jump to that final summer specification. So Western Arizona, Phoenix, big price increases, but also Southern California increases of 10 to 25 cents over the next week or two. That's going to flow into Las Vegas as well, Matt. Northern California, big increases of 20 to 35 cents because that refinery fire. That's also going to flow into Reno, Nevada. So if you're on the West Coast, buckle up because the pain is going to be pretty noticeable.
So you are saying, or they are saying, you're probably not saying, but they are saying that out of the dozens of versions of already pre-existing reformulated gasoline, not one of them met the criteria that somebody decided was going to work well for the Phoenix metropolitan area?
That's essentially it. They wanted to come over. They wanted to come in, and they wanted to look at their own version of summer fuel. Which is slightly different than California's. So if you really want to look it up, it's a doozy. Reading all the little areas, Matt, Arizona is carved into areas of its own. We've also highlighted the fragmentation, not only of just one state, but the entire country. If you saw my post on X the other day, by the way, I looked at one pipeline operator, Matt, and they had like 5 to 6 different types of gasoline, depending on where that gasoline is going.
I'm so
It's just, you fill up, shove the nozzle in your tank. You don't actually know a lot of these complexities, right? If you're an average motorist. So this is what contributes a lot to the seasonal surge in prices, which are basically now starting in full force. And by the way, while we're talking about the West Coast getting a lot of pain, we just saw something we've never seen in areas of the Great Lakes. Over the weekend, Michigan, Indiana, Illinois, Ohio saw a price cycle on a day of the week. We've almost never seen this happen. Sunday prices in Michigan, 339, Indiana, 339, Ohio, 329. I have no idea why on Sunday, because people are normally not at work Sunday, Matt. So they really had to set the stage for this to happen. But, we haven't even added in the risks of what's happening with tariffs or the Russia ceasefire. There have been a lot of comments from the president about both of those. We're just sticking to the seasonality. But I think, Matt, the bottom line here for our listeners is that probably the majority of them, 90%, maybe beyond that, you're going to see gas prices going up probably noticeably over the next couple of weeks as the seasonal dynamics take hold. 3 issues: summer gasoline, refinery maintenance, rising demand.
Yeah, there's just I've got so many question marks in my brain, and one of them that I think bears asking: do you think that some of the price increase may be because of the imminent tariffs that may be going into effect, that may be wholesale gas prices and whatnot, that they're just trying to pre-factor that in so that they're not caught having to lose money on batches of new oil or gasoline that may be coming across the border? I mean, is there any possibility that you think that might be a portion of the case? Because again, yeah, Sunday, you're exactly right. And I'll also point out some of the prices you quoted are nearly $1 a gallon higher than I paid here in Kentucky and Missouri not 14 days ago.
Well, and keep in mind, when we make those comparisons, we're also kind of comparing a valley to a peak, right? You're comparing very low prices before a winter price cycle to the height of the peak in the summer. So I wouldn't say it's comparing apples to oranges. It's maybe like comparing tangerines to oranges, right? We're at different places in the cycle. You're comparing the absolute low of winter cycle to like maybe the mid-cycle summer gasoline switch over. So yeah, I mean, it's not uncommon that you're going to see those dollar a gallon differences. Keep in mind, for areas of the Northeast, by the way, your comment's really timely, because what you probably saw, that really low price, was a kind of a clearance price for winter gasoline to get it out of the system. By the way, that's what's happening in the mid-Atlantic and northeastern states, areas like Pennsylvania and New York. I've had a lot of comments saying, prices are so much lower than they were a month or 2 months ago in those areas. That is absolutely the case today. New York, Pennsylvania, Rhode Island, Connecticut, Vermont, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, New Jersey. Those prices, Matt, probably are at some of the multi-year lows right now. But the secret is because they're getting rid of winter gasoline at a big discount. Those areas that I just outlined, Matt, in 2 weeks are going to be making the rollover to summer gasoline, and they're going to get a bit of sticker shock. So the West Coast is getting sticker shock now. The Great Lakes got a little bit of sticker shock over the weekend. The next up, right after you file your taxes, right around April 15th, is when areas of the mid-Atlantic, all the way down to like Virginia, Matt, Virginia, Pennsylvania, all the way northeast, then by mid-April, make that final switch over. And there's going to be some sticker shock. You're going to see those sub $3 prices are going to completely disappear.
Yeah, I know that over the weekend, this is a question mark. I literally I'm looking live now on gasbuddy.com. I didn't want to pull open my app, so I've got the actual website here on the screen. I paid $2.89, and that same exact station today is $2.62. 48 hours, no, not even 36 hours later.
So it plummeted over 20 cents.
It did. And
So,
by the way, it's not just that one station. All the stations that I happened to drive by and mentally, take an inventory of price points,
yeah.
they're all back down to that 260 something, within a nickel of each other. They're all back down to that price point versus 36 hours ago when it was 280, 289 is what I paid. And I did see some in Missouri that hit the $3 and 309 mark over the weekend. I haven't done a quick study up on Gas Buddy to see what those stations are today.
Yeah.
But I do know here in Kentucky that they did drop a good 36 hours ago versus what they are today.
Yeah, and again, that's depending on where you are in that price cycle, which lasts about 7 to 12 days. It sounds like prices reset, and then very quickly stations started competing with each other, lowering and lowering and lowering, and that's if I'm you, I'd go fill up for 262 because there could
Yeah.
be another price cycle coming here in the next 24 to 48 hours. And by the way, this cycling is happening in a lot more areas. But, Matt, there's also something I wanted to highlight here. We talk a lot about gas prices in the U.S. Some really good news for our friends north in Canada is that the carbon tax pause. So those that don't keep in track, Canadians have been paying carbon taxes, basically a tax that increases every year, basically for the right to use gasoline, to burn gasoline in their vehicles. That carbon tax was going to go up April 1st of this year, but because of the elections, Mark Carney, who is one of the candidates that's going to be running for re-election, he actually is now the prime minister taking over for Justin Trudeau. He paused the Canadian carbon tax. That pause takes effect on April 1st, and that's going to lead to a big rollback in gas prices in most of Canada by the tune of potentially beyond 15 cents a liter. Now, I know most Americans are like,
So basically 30, a little over 30 cents a gallon
well,
in the translation there, since they go in liters and we do gallons.
yeah. So if you do the translation to gallons, that's actually about 57 cents a gallon.
Oh, wow. Okay.
15 cents a liter times 3.785 gallons, liters to 1 gallon is almost 57 cents a gallon. So if you're in Canada tuning into the podcast, yeah, we're really looking forward to the end in carbon tax. And by the way, Matt, for diesel, the carbon tax rollback is going to be about a 23 cent a gallon drop. That corresponds to almost 87 cents a gallon. So now keep in mind, Canadians, I've been doing a lot of Canadian reporter calls today. What is kind of delaying or could impact or offset those drops is that the price of oil today is actually up 3%. The price of gasoline, the wholesale price of gasoline is up about 3 cents a gallon, which would equate to about 12 cents a liter. So I did that wrong. It's not 3 cents a gallon. It'd actually be more like a penny a liter. So keep in mind what I've been telling Canadians is you might not see the full 17.6 cent decline in gasoline. It might be more like 16 or 15 cents a liter. But for diesel, again, 22 cents a liter reduction instead of the federal carbon tax on diesel, which is 23 cents. So some great news for Canada. Carbon tax pause goes into effect tomorrow. It may not all happen at 12:01. Matt, as a business owner, if taxes suddenly change and you operate point of sale devices, you literally have to go in there and manually update the point of sale devices to no longer basically pass along that carbon tax. So gas stations are probably going to have to go in manually and update that. If you've got really fancy software, you might be able to schedule that to happen directly at 12:01 a.m.
Yeah, that should be very interesting all the way around. I'm curious. I know that Canadians ship gasoline wholesale across the border for much of our Northeast.
Yeah.
Does America shift gasoline at any point along the border to Canada?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, some of those feeder markets Western New York, some of that gasoline can end up in Canada. Areas of Manitoba are served via pipelines down from the States as well. So absolutely, there's this cross-border trade that occurs, whether it's Canada sending oil or refined products to the States. The U.S. does not send oil really into Canada, but it does send refined product into Canada after it's refined. So keep in mind, there's a lot of weird things between the currencies and the units. But again, so Canadians, good news, your carbon tax pause is going to be implemented. But keep in mind, gas prices may not drop that full amount because offsetting factors could boost the price up. But, back stateside here, Matt, we're talking about increases. Canada is going to get a nice decrease here. But a big a big difference in where gas prices are going to go depending on where you are in the States. Again, the West Coast, brace for impact. You're going to be seeing gas prices surge. And in the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic, you're about 2 weeks away from seeing gas prices surge. So, and we haven't even mentioned all the headlines of the day.
Right. Let me throw out one particular headline that I think we probably ought to touch on just a touch, which is some of the tariffs are seemingly going to be going into effect this week in one way or another. There have been even some auto manufacturers' unions giving a thumbs up saying, yes, we definitely want this. We think it's a good thing. So it seems, as of the time of this recording, to be a safe assumption that at least something may happen this week with the announcement of different tariffs and whatnot, and that they may actually go into effect since there seems to be a lot of backing for some of those things. They are saying that the price of vehicles, so like if you have a gas guzzler right now and you're thinking about trading it in for a very fuel efficient type of a vehicle that gets 30 plus miles to the gallon or whatnot, you may see some different price points going on there in the very near future. But what about like crude oil tariffs and gasoline tariffs? I mean, this is your area of expertise. Talk to us about what you're hearing, maybe some rumblings, if you will. Do you think that some of these tariffs will actually kick in for crude oil and gasoline and other products going back and forth between Mexico and the U.S. and Canada and the U.S.?
Well, Matt, I think there was some time a couple of weeks ago where the Secretary of Energy had hinted that they might not be implemented at all right after April 2nd. And now I read the news to try and gauge my opinion. A story that caught my eye over the weekend from the Wall Street Journal basically said that now Trump has been pushing for more aggressive tariffs. So I don't know if we have an angry Trump here that is, a little bit more frustrated. I think the words that he uttered to NBC News over the weekend were that Trump himself was pissed off with Russia's Vladimir Putin. So, even that, Matt, oil prices up today over 2% because Russia is a huge oil producer. And if President Trump does implement secondary tariffs on countries that buy oil from Russia, basically Trump is going to punish countries like China and India for buying Russian oil. It's likely that China and India may slow down their purchases of Russian oil. And guess what? If people aren't buying Russian oil, that means less oil on the market. So that could even be problematic. But, to your point, if on April 2nd, to the Wall Street Journal headlines point, if the tariffs are more aggressive, if they're bigger, say they're 20 or 25%, that could collapse the U.S. economy, or that could be the fear that causes an economic sell-off and disturbance. And so even if the tariffs do move forward, what I'm thinking, speaking to the point we mentioned about offsets, is even if there is a big tariff, that could be partially offset by economic turmoil, which may be so powerful that it could completely offset the value of the tariffs.
Wow. You've known me for a long time. I don't often get speechless, but there's
a lot of wires crossing in my head because that's been one of the questions, Matt, is, will tariffs be implemented? Will they be impactful? Will Americans notice those tariffs, or will the tariffs be completely offsetted by economic turmoil? That is a distinct possibility. We all saw how the stock market reacted. What was it, about a month ago, when the tariffs were basically within hours of being implemented, the stock market down 700, 800. Yeah. I mean, 3 or 4 episodes of our program ago, we literally were breaking news that the Dow fell 500, then 600, then 700, then 800 points, all because tariffs scare the economy.
Yep, that is economics 101 right there, my friend, all the way around. I remember that very clearly in marketing classes in college, exactly what you're talking about.
Econ 101, there. Baby. I mean, and maybe there's some good news in the long run, Matt, but inspiring a trade war. And by the way, Canada has promised retaliation. So to your point, the one area I'd be most nervous that the tariffs could actually have an impact would be the northeastern U.S., where coincidentally, I said 2 weeks from now is when they should expect prices to go up anyway because of the transition from winter to summer gasoline. Imagine that impact from the switchover plus tariffs, because keep in mind, many areas of New England, Matt, are solely reliant on that Irving oil refinery in St. John, New Brunswick. So the tariff could impact them in a double whammy fashion, along with the transition from winter to summer gasoline. But I literally just tweeted out, Matt, something that does have me worried. I think Americans are going to be noticing the biggest increase in gas prices since last spring in the next couple of weeks.
All right, role play with me for just a moment here. Let's go back to the idea of reformulated gasoline, and we understand that there's some volatility right now between the standard spring increase that you mentioned just a few minutes ago. Largely depends upon the amount and quantity of different types of reformulated gasoline that we have, versus if we just had more of a simple universal reformulated gasoline in the summer months for most states. I understand Alaska may not want to participate in that because, well, it's cold, and I get that. But let me ask you this. If, as a crazy assumption, there was a way to kind of tweak the market to kind of help offset some of these tariffs for Americans, and the White House suddenly, or the Department of Energy suddenly came up with a bright idea and said, hey, we got like, this is an exaggeration, okay? It's not real, but we got like 3,000 reformulated gasolines. I picked a really high number so that it seems impossible, right? But we've got all these, versions of reformulated gasoline. If we only picked one and said, let's just do all of that across the country, that'll save us XYZ cents and help offset. So, how much would that save? What would happen if the nation were to say, okay, let's try that and try to help offset to help American consumers? And how quickly could the refineries start? I mean, I would think if they're able to produce a whole bunch of different versions of reformulated gasoline, they would probably halfway rejoice and say, finally, we get to do one across the country.
Well, they may not fully rejoice because there are price impacts that impact them. Prices go up every spring. That supports their bottom line. So they are unwittingly the winner in the seasonal gasoline transition that occurs every year. What would that look like? As I look, Matt, at the types of gasoline, by the way, I mentioned I tweeted this graphic out. There's regular 7.8, regular 9, regular 13, regular 7.4. Then there's premium 7.8, premium 9.0, premium 13.5, premium 7.4. So that's 8 different types of gasoline just for this one pipeline operator. If we were to somehow pick the most stringent standard, if that would work year round in every state, that could be the challenge. I'm not a chemical engineer. It may cost Americans every day maybe a nickel a gallon more, maybe 6 cents a gallon more.
Versus what we're actually seeing.
So it may cost us more in the long run every day, but you get rid of this massive seasonal surge that occurs every year. Basically, by the time you get to late winter, Matt, there's this huge pool of winter gasoline. Right? That leads prices lower. Then you drain that huge pool, and then you start filling up all these other smaller pools of all these different blends, and that contributes to the price sticker shock every spring. So, it costs Americans maybe a nickel more every day, but over the long run, as manufacturing, adapted to that, it would probably cost less the second year, less the third year, because the components that go into that gasoline would probably become more available, driving the price down.
So that 20 and 30 cent a gallon jump that we see bare minimum.
Well, it's usually, by the way, on average, it's 20 to 65 cents every year. So it would basically get rid of that completely. You'd get rid of it completely.
Yeah, that's the key mark. So you would almost think that if tariffs are going into play, and it could impact gas prices, and it could do this and it could do that, if there was, and it's hyperbole at this point, wave a little magic wand and say, hey, we can help offset some of the we can have our cake and eat it too. We can get the tariffs, we can apply the pressure that we are promoting, that we are wanting to apply, but we can also, kind of like Canada's like, hey, we're not going to we're going to pause that tax on April 1st and lower the price of gas. There are ways to do that here if they wanted to, the reformulated gasoline and other aspects, where they could say, hey, for right now, how about we just try this, guys? Instead of 30 blends or 50 blends or however many blends that there are, let's just go for one universal for the remainder of the summer and see what we get. That to me, would make a whole lot more logical sense than what we got going on.
You're 100% correct. There's a reason why Americans, were very frustrated with the government. The government has grown inefficient. This is one of those things that over time has been convoluted, and it's contributed to inefficiency, right? And whether you love or hate Elon Musk right now, his job, right, Department of Government Efficiency, is to go back, get rid of. I think Trump ran on a premise: for every new rule we write, we have to get rid of 10 old rules that no longer make sense. because the government has not been very good at looking at where can it make itself more efficient. Right, we've been a bit more bloated. We've added more rules and regulations, but there hasn't been a government process to review those potentially antiquated rules and regulations. Sometimes it would make sense to review what works and what doesn't. In a business, they're constantly looking at what works and what doesn't, because you can't be, you can't survive as a business entity with being, kept back by really antiquated processes or things that don't make sense anymore, right? Eventually, Facebook will depreciate old products that nobody's using. The government probably continues those programs, whether it's cost effective or not. One of those programs that would be very ripe for potentially making more efficient is the summer gasoline program. And I'm not here to pick political ways and means, but over the past decades, there have been more rules, there's been more regulations. This is one of those things that probably makes more sense at the federal level.
Then the piecemeal, local and state authorities going in and saying, we're going to cherry pick different areas. How on earth, and I'm not going to go on a soapbox because we don't have time, but how on earth it makes logical sense, even from a local or state level, to look at oil refineries and say, hey, starting on this date at this year, this is what we're going to expect out of you, and just deal with it. It's a piecemealed situation that you wouldn't think would make a whole lot of sense with how many refineries are left in this country?
Yeah, there's about 130, Matt. And so I just pulled up this graphic here. If you're joining us again, this is kind of an older gasoline map, but I mean, look at all the different colors here. These are all different blends. And basically, when refineries have to produce all these blends and ship them into different areas, it's a logistical nightmare. So instead of having one big pool of gasoline that can be shipped from California to Maine or Washington to Florida, we have all of these localized blends, which contributes to a surge in prices when issues do come up. And they often do, because spring is the time of year when refineries do maintenance. So if during that maintenance, there's an unexpected issue that arises, suddenly the refinery that produces that blend has to improvise, and other refineries that produce those blends have to improvise, and it gets really messy. So again, simplify this map. Make it be as simple as possible. If you need 2 or 3 blends, okay.
But that's still a whole lot better than what exists now. Let me ask you very quickly before you disappear this map. The white areas, does that mean that there is no reformulated gasoline whatsoever in those white areas?
Well, and again, this is an older map. So the white areas are conventional summer gasoline. There's still a difference between summer and winter.
So it is reformulated. I just wanted to
No. It's not reformulated. So reformulated gasoline is different than conventional gasoline. So we'll talk about the Bobs. You're talking about a family of Bobs. Bob means a blend stock for oxygenate blending. C-Bob is conventional blend stock for oxygenate blending, basically conventional plus ethanol. That's what I'm saying. And there's reformulated plus ethanol. The difference is conventional is used, look at all these rural areas on the map. There's no big cities where the white stuff is used, generally speaking, or there are smaller large cities.
Right.
Where you see reformulated gasoline, where there are tens of thousands of vehicles or hundreds of thousands of vehicles, that's where you tend to use reformulated gasoline. But the problem is when a refinery goes down that produces both, what does it produce more of, reformulated or conventional? And then if you look at some of these smaller areas, like Matt, look in Phoenix, and then look in California, there's green, there's blue, there's red, there's dark blue. Those refineries could theoretically be producing 4 or 5 different blends of gasoline. So again, my message to the Department of Energy, the Secretary of Energy, the government is, let's simplify this map. Maybe we don't get it down to 2 or 3 colors, or maybe we don't get it down to 1, but 2 or 3. Simplifying this complex web of regulations will help reduce the surge in gas prices that we see every spring.
That to me makes logical sense. In every stretch of the imagination, but we have beat this drum a couple of times. It hasn't come up too terribly.
The horse has been beat dead.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, in many ways. But I keep thinking that eventually something will happen where it will make logical sense for them to go, hey, let's try this. Something along those lines. I got to tell you, we're basically out of time. So where do you see prices going over the next 7 days or so? Like, what are your thought processes? And I'm going to give you an out today. We don't know exactly what's going to have the tariffs, we're living in a weird week. So I'm not going to hold you to it. I hope you, the listener and the viewer, are not going to hold Patrick to it because we don't know. There's a lot of unknowns. Yeah, so do your best based on the possibilities that are existent with us over the next 7 to 10 days.
Okay, so nearly guaranteed the national average will likely go up between now and a week from now. It's at $3.12 a gallon. I would say it could go up by 5 to 7 cents over the next week. If you're on the West Coast, you're going to see much bigger gas prices or much higher gas prices. Washington, Oregon, California, areas of Arizona, Phoenix, Reno, Las Vegas, expect prices to go up by 15 to 35 cents in those areas. For the rest of us, Matt, the Great Lakes could actually see prices roll back because they did just cycle. Florida could look at a late wheat cycle where prices are going back up. In the Northeast, 2-week warning, not 2-minute warning. I'm giving you a 2-week heads up. Mid-Atlantic states, and I'm going to pull up a map here real quick so I can make sure I get all these states right, but be on alert. If you are in the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast, Virginia, Pennsylvania, Maryland, Delaware, New Jersey, New York, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Vermont, Maine, you've got a 2-week warning. Your gas prices are going to jump in April, probably mid-April when you make that transition. But almost everyone, Matt, you're going to be like the one exception. If gas prices inch down, you'll be lucky. I'm going to estimate 40 out of 50 states will see gas prices higher next week than they are today. Yay. It's par for the course. Tariffs are the wild card because there will be late-breaking developments with President Trump's tariffs likely to be unpaused tomorrow, or I should say Tuesday or early this week. Check me out on X, Gas Buddy Guy. If there's any developments, throw your questions out. I'd be happy to answer them. Tell me where you live. I'll try to give you the best idea on what's going to happen. But Matt, we're going into a very busy April.
No question in any way, shape, or form. We're here to keep you all about. By the way, very quickly, as we are wrapping things up here, here in the next several weeks, you're going to see a few changes within Over a Barrel and the way that our podcast operates. We've got some exciting things. We're kind of doing some fine-tuning under the hood, so to speak. I'll use that, all right? So there are some things that we are working on when it comes to Over a Barrel that's going to make it bigger and better than ever.
Exciting stuff.
Exciting stuff. Like we are planning, we're doing some things behind the scenes. We've got a whole team of people that are working on this, and we are so excited in the coming weeks. Once we go into what we're going to call a different format, we are so excited to be able to share those things with you, and we are very confident that you're just going to love everything that's going on there. But we'll give you more details.
I was going to say, Matt, when are we going to give the folks more details on what we have planned?
We can do that in next week's episode. How about that?
Perfect. Well, stay tuned for now.
All right, that's going to do it for Over a Barrel. You all have a great one and just stay safe.